Welcome in, college baseball fans. Yes, we've got a new intro. You're going to learn to love it because we love it here. We think it's outstanding. We're going to be joined today by Jake McKeever.
Good to be here. Had to dig deep in the closet to find a Big Ten jersey.
Oh, is that Indiana? Oh, let's
Indiana.
go. I love that one. And Noah Darling.
That's right. I wouldn't be caught dead wearing anything Big Ten, but I do love Big Ten baseball and fired up.
It's right there for you. It's right around the block. Like you can just go out and see some games there when you're in the Midwest there.
Yeah, I tried not to, but I did catch some last year. Better than you think.
And Jay Stanton may be joining us here in a little bit. He's having some technical difficulties, but he might be joining us. You guys know we are the weekend rotation. We bring in some panelists who are great, know exactly what they're talking about. I got Alex Day also. He's behind the scenes today doing the producing for us. But, yeah, you guys have seen our show. You know what this is about. We're doing a Big Ten preview. We break down all the teams. We rank them from 1 to 13. So we go through them in reverse order. So you get them in reverse order, 13 to 1. We break down every team and see how they are. Then we talk about the player of the year, the pitcher of the year, freshman of the year, the dark horse who can win the championship, and then our best series of the year. And then we go through some individual questions. We're going to get right into it, boys. So number 13, this was almost unanimous across all the voting for us today. Michigan State. So, Jake, when you look at this Michigan State team, why do we have them at the bottom? What can we do for this Michigan State team?
Well, I think they have about 8 players that I think are below average. The only one is Mitchell Jebb. And when I was doing some research, he hit 365 in the Cape. Really like him. But you know that picture of the trailer park with the Bugatti? I feel like that's Mitchell Jebb on Michigan State. He just seems to be far and away their best player. And, I mean, he could go 3 for 3 with 3 home runs, and they lose 10-3. That's how bad I think Michigan State is, and it's going to be a fight down there at the bat rack between them and Minnesota to see who's kind of going to be the worst. Their big weaknesses, they really don't hit the ball out of the park, which is kind of strange because they have, I think, the smallest left field line at 300, and they only hit 39 home runs last year. But I'm excited to see kind of what they look like with Graydon Canyon to open the season. You know, exciting mid-majors, 2 mid-majors going at it.
Yeah, and this is, you know, we like to joke that the Big Ten is a mid-major. There's some teams in here that would be beat up by a lot of mid-majors, as there are at a lot of Power 5 schools. However, Michigan State is missing pitching. They just do not have much pitching. They got Nick Powers, big left-handed, over 6 ERA. They just struggle on that side of it. They got Casey Mays and Jack Frank, who hit a little bit with Mitch last year. Mitch Jebb is, like you said, it's a Bentley parked in a trailer park. Like, he's just a great ball player who's at Michigan State, and it's unfortunate that his skill is going to be put to waste. I don't see a high ceiling for Michigan State, maybe 10 in this league, but they're just a bottom dweller this year. They do have freshman Joseph Zawera coming in, big 6'7" left-handed dude. I'm excited to see him get some innings, but other than that, there's not a lot of excitement on this team other than Mitch Jebb. Number 12, we've got Minnesota. This Minnesota team is semi-interesting. We're closer to interesting. When you look at this team, Noah, what makes you interested in this Minnesota club?
Well, I think when you talk about Minnesota being interesting, you have to think about when they were good, and that's really not what we're looking at this year. You think about the Max Meyer era at Minnesota. That was really special. Max Meyer's not walking through that door. No pitching to be talked about in Minnesota, really to get excited about. Somebody I personally like is Richie Holitz, who's an Omaha transfer. I actually had you'll have to cite my source on this. I think it was History 2 1865 with him at the University of Nebraska Omaha. Really special class. And as much as he learned there, I think he's enjoying it more at Minnesota from an academic standpoint, but not from a baseball standpoint. Not much to be talked about with this Minnesota team. It's going to be another bad year for the folks up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, MSP.
But they do get that one weekend, though, Noah, where they're hosting the greatest college baseball tournament in the country.
That's right. I'm fired up to be there. The Cambria Classic, March 3rd through the 5th. Going to be a lot of great teams there. You won't get to see a team like Minnesota play the national champion very often. I can't wait to see it.
It is an exciting tournament. When you look at this club, they've got Brett Bateman, who might be their star player. He's best their returning player. Catcher Riley Swinson was, he limited 14 games last year. He's got a lot of pop, so I'd be interested to see if he could take a step forward. This team doesn't have much, though, and they're going to be leaning hard on some freshmen that are coming in. I know Christopher Hawkinson and Drew Berkland are coming in, but this team's just going to be a bottom-dwelling Big Ten team, which means that they're a bottom-dwelling team and not looking at a tournament bid right now. If you're a bottom-dwelling Big Ten team, it's not looking good for your season. But You never know. Get in the season, some interesting things can happen. I just don't see it with this Minnesota ball club. Moving on to our number 11 team, Jacob, I'll let you start with this one. Ohio State. This is a weird spot for them. They've had some good seasons. They've had some really bad seasons. Where are they at this year? We have them at 11. Feels right.
Yeah, I would say that there's just too many unknowns with this Ohio State team. They get Trey Lipsey back, who was second team Big Ten freshman last year. And there's just a lot of unknowns. I mean, this is a program that is, top tier in Iowa. I mean, not Iowa, Ohio. They have a ton of Ohio guys. Look for transfer Justin Eckhart to kind of take a big role. He was at Texas last year, struck out 27 and 23 innings. Sealy grad from Texas. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles kind of the cold. But than that, I think he's going to be their exciting, transfer arm.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of these Big Ten teams, it's tough. This up north, it's cold. They don't get to play at home for a long time. That is a very tough thing to do, just play on the road for a lot. No, when you look at the team, what do you like at Ohio State?
Well, they got some quality bats that come back. Two guys that have hit over 300 in their careers, Cade Kern and Marcus Ernst. So it's a little bit of a meat in the lineup kind of situation compared to Minnesota, Michigan State, where you're scrambling to kind of get a couple of those guys. And then Isaiah Coupe, however you say it, is on the mound. He's a solid piece for him. He's not somebody that you would expect to see kind of starting on Friday nights at a lot of those higher level places, even in the Big Ten. But he's somebody that can eat some innings for him and kind of keep him in some ball games.
Yeah, you look at that, and when you look outside of Ernst and Kern, I think that those are the two guys that put you ahead of Minnesota and Michigan State, but there's not a lot else there. There's some career guys. They're going to be good. They do have Henry Kasmer coming in, a middle infielder. I don't think that he's going to be ready to hit at this level, but he is defensively ready. So it'll be interesting to see how Ohio State is this year. Again, this is another team with the low ceiling. So that's what I think we have them down here at 11. I don't think we're far off. I think that this is about where they're going to finish here in this conference. When we look at our next team, it's so different from their softball diamond club. We look at Northwestern. Jake, when you look at this team ranked at 10, there's a lot of reasons for them to be here. They just don't – they lost a lot last year. How do they recover from all that offense that they're losing?
I think Sean Sullivan's going to be their best player, and they're going to need more from Evan. I think it's Minovich, the John Cooper guy. He hit 200 in back-to-back years, and they're just going to need more from him. Look for freshman Mike Elko. That's the son of the Duke head coach, to kind of come in and take a big role there. And their weakness, I have night games. They cannot play night games at Northwestern. All 3:30 starts. So when they go and play on the road at night, I think they're going to take a while to get used to that.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. And again, it's another ball club that's on the road a lot. It's a northern type team. When we look at this team, it's just missing a ton of offense. Like I said, they lost their top 4 offensive producers from last year. They're going to be struggling to find offense. They do have Michael Farinelli and Grant Comstock coming back, who are 2 good pitchers. Maybe keep them in the game with pitching and defense. But other than that, this is very tough to look at this club and say that they could finish in the top half of this conference. I don't know. Maybe they can catch up with the Indiana's, the Purdue's, the Illinois. I just don't see it. I think that this Northwestern team is going to be a bottom dweller as well. I think that these first 4 teams that we've talked about are by far the worst 4 teams in this conference, because our next team, when we talk about number 9, Indiana, when we talk about this team, Noah, there are some good things to like about this team. What do you like?
There are absolutely some great things to like about this team. I saw Indiana play in the Big Ten tournament last year in person, and they kind of impressed me. They got a little bit of power in there. Matthew Ellis at catcher, and he's going to DH for him a little bit this year, is one of my favorite players that I saw in the entire Big Ten tournament. Big guy, hits the ball hard every time it comes up. I know when Jace gets in here, he'll have some memories of Matthew Ellis. He cranked one against Iowa last year. It was incredible. And then you got Hunter Jesse, Bobby Whalen, and Carter Matheson, kind of saying that just like with Ohio State, where they had a little bit of meat, here you get the steak of the Indiana lineup. I think we're really low on Indiana. This team has a little bit of a potential. They got a little bit of chip on their shoulder. They were the last team in the Big Ten tournament last year, barely beat out Nebraska for that spot, and there was some animosity between both programs there. So I'm looking forward to it.
Not to spoiler alert myself, but they are possibly on my list of maybe dark horse teams. I do love this Indiana team. I think that they have a lot of experience coming back. Philip Glazer has played in 160 college baseball games. He's coming back for a grad senior year. That's just a lot of experience to be bringing back there. And then you look at pitchers like Ty Bothell returning. They got freshman Devin Taylor coming in, who was a high recruit there, and they thought maybe he was going to get drafted, and he didn't get drafted high enough to leave. So he's coming in there to play outfield. This team could be very good. Braden Reisdorf also coming in to pitch, another freshman. I think that this team's going to have a good mix of seniority mixed in with these younger guys, and they're going to compete. They want to win that title. They want to be up there, and they want to be known as a team that's good in the Big Ten. So we'll see progressing. We do have them at 9 now with a lot of room to grow. I think that their ceiling is as high as the top 4 in this conference, but it's going to come down to whether they can perform when we get down to it. Number 8, we got Purdue. Now, this Purdue team is weird, and it's really hard to predict where they're going to be at this year. Jake, what do you like about this Purdue team? What are we missing? What do we have from this Purdue team?
Yeah, I really don't know what to think about this Purdue team, and that seems to kind of be a common theme so far with how I feel about them in Ohio State. I like Luke Gaffney, I like Cam Thompson and Evan Albridge, but outside of those 3, who are you really going to look at? Do you look at Joe Stevens, the Aussie JUCO bandit coming over? And I think that's going to be, a Purdue team where they'll beat some of the top teams, but they'll also kind of lose some of the series behind them. Look for them. Their kind of proven series as they play Ole Miss at Ole Miss. That's kind of a common theme on this trend as well. So, that's kind of going to be where we see how good this Purdue team is when they play at Ole Miss.
This Purdue team to me feels like Arizona State last year in the Pac-12, where they would compete with some good schools, and then they'd lose to some really bad schools and not understand the point of it there. I know that that's slander coming to you there, Noah, about this Arizona State. But when you look at this Purdue team, they do have CJ Backer coming, who got 8 starts a year ago, but they lost all the other starting pitching. So they're really going to have to figure it out there. And they don't have a ton of freshman arm talent coming in. They got some freshmen coming in, but it's not highly recruited. It's not highly talented. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this bullpen works with that and how they can really work through some of these pitching woes. It's tough in this conference because you are on the road a lot to start. So when you have pitching issues, pitching on the road is always difficult. So when you're going into these ball clubs early, it's going to be really tough. But, come Big Ten play, who knows? Maybe they pick it up, they get a little better. But I think that we have them at 8, and that's about their ceiling. I don't see them getting a lot better than that this year. So I think that we have them picked pretty close to where we want them. So moving on to our number 7 team. Noah, I'm going to let you start with this one. Illinois is a very talented team that just can't seem to ever put it together for a whole season. How does this Illinois team do this year?
Well, it starts on the mound because Illinois has quietly produced a lot of minor league talent. Haven't really reached the major league level. You think back all the way like to Tyler Jay, who was really great for Illinois in about 2014. Never really panned out at the big league level, but somebody who was really good in this kind of Big Ten Friday night starter kind of role. This year, I think it's going to be Riley Gowans. He's a returning option. He came back for what was a Saturday starter last year. He's going to be great for him on Friday this year. And then they've also got some pop up there in the lineup. You got Danny Goligale, Cam McDonald, and Brandon Kamoa. These guys all hit over 300. You kind of see this a little bit in these Big Ten teams where they have these guys who quietly produce. I think that might be a product of some down pitching across the conference. But quietly, it's a very fun conference to watch. These guys know how to hit all over the yard. I really like this Illinois team. Another team I think we're a little bit low on.
Yeah, and quietly is the key there because it's very quiet up there. But it is interesting to see what these clubs are going to produce. Like you said, Cam McDonald, Danny Dolich, Braden Comia, those are good ball players there at a weird school here. They do fill out the middle of that lineup. But Jake, when you look at this team, what else do they have? Do they have some players coming in? Do they have some pieces that are going to fit with this situation here? Can they get higher than this 7?
Well, you mentioned Brandon Comia, and I think he's going to be the key to their success. I think he's kind of far and away their best player. And they also got his younger brother coming in, Jaden Comia. So look for them to kind of, I guess, build off each other and be teammates kind of for the first time ever. I know I'm going to butcher this name, but look for Cal. I think it's Herja. He's going to be my breakout candidate for this Illinois team. And I think they got a start earlier this year. That was kind of the problem is they got hot at the end of the Big Ten play, but at the beginning they kind of struggled. They play an exciting series against Wake and Southern Miss in back-to-back weeks. And if they can win one of those 2 series, I think that's going to go really far away in their RPI.
Yeah, and they got freshman little right-hander Julius Sanchez going, but he's got great stuff. He's highly recruited. It'll be interesting to see if he gets time right away. I think that he might get a lot of starts. They just have, Riley Gowans is great, and having him on that mound is going to be perfect for Fridays. They got to figure out Saturday, Sunday. They got to figure out a bullpen. So that'll be interesting to see what they do with those returning bullpen arms and what they can do with the starting lineup. So we'll see. Illinois, big ceiling. I think they're just going to sit at 7 because there's too many question marks right now. Moving on to Penn State. Jake, I'm going to let you start with this Penn State team. What do you like about Penn State? Why do we have them here at number 6?
I really like Penn State because they're going to look to take a big step. They made the Big Ten tournament for the first time in a long time last year, and they also beat Pitt in a midweek. They do play them again at PNC Park, and they do open with Miami. But I'm really looking for transfer Trey Page to kind of have a big year for the Nittany Lions. He's someone who I have circled, as well as Ty Torty and Jacob Coffin. These are both travel ball teammates that both signed to Penn State, and really excited to kind of get them on campus and see what they can do.
Yeah, it's an interesting club that we have bringing in. They do have a ton of freshmen. They had a lot of talent coming in. Noah, what do you like about this Penn State club?
Well, it's kind of my mission this year. Last year, I tried to do the Pac-12 a little bit. This year, I'm going to try and prop up the Big Ten. This is a great conference. I really enjoyed watching them in Omaha in the Big Ten tournament, of course. But I think that Tommy Molsky is going to be a player that you can kind of get people excited about. This guy can hit it or throw it really, really hard, 100 mile an hour when he tops out. Somebody that you're going to want to tune in and watch. He kind of reminds me of a little bit some of these guys we've seen across the country that you turn the TV on when these guys are coming in. Otherwise, I don't trust this Penn State team too much. This is a team that, like Jake said, made the Big Ten tournament for the first time in a while. A little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde situation. They showed a little life in the Big Ten tournament, and people thought, hey, this team, they just beat Iowa. Iowa's a good team. Maybe they can go on a run, and they just really didn't. So there's a little bit of a sad valley coming, I think.
I want to think that this team overperformed late last year, but they have a couple returning starting pitchers here in Travis Loonsman and Jaden Hinline. Those are guys that ate up a ton of innings last year, got a lot of starts for them. And then they got a bullpen guy like Jordan Morales who threw 47 innings last year. When you add that together in this conference, having pitching might be the difference because there's not a ton of top-line pitching in this conference. I can see them making a run for it, but they're going to have to be a little bit better during the regular season than they were last year.
Yeah, it almost feels like the Mendoza line for the Big Ten is if you have a sub-5 ERA, you're considered an ace with how high some of these ERAs are.
Yeah, you look at some conferences and an ace is under 3, and then we look at this one. It's like if you have a 4.5,
yeah.
You might be the dude. You might be up for pitcher of the year here. And Penn State's got a couple of them. So, and Morales out of the bullpen, he might get some starts this year. They have pitching, which is one thing that this conference does not have a ton of. So bringing that back, this could help Penn State. But right now we got them at 6. Again, a lot of question marks. That's a problem with a lot of these teams that are 6 and below right now. We're moving on to a team that doesn't have a ton of question marks, but just has a lot of lack of hope. And we're talking about Nebraska. Number 5, Nebraska. The lack of hope is there. Everybody wants them to be good. They're so close. They're right there. Omaha's literally at their back door. When we look at this, Jake, why is Nebraska not going to be the team that we think that they could be?
Well, first off, I want to say that I'm really excited to watch this Nebraska team. They have, compared to every other team in the Big Ten, the most fan support. They had a top 25 transfer class. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of how they gel. I think that's going to be the biggest question mark with Nebraska is how well some of these transfers gel. You got Caden Brumbaum out of Oklahoma State. Didn't really get a ton of at-bats, but tore the cover off the ball when he did, as well as Will Rizzo out of Texas A&M. Again, not a guy that saw a ton of innings, but these are Power 5 guys. So it'll be really kind of interesting to see, why these guys were recruited to big schools and maybe also to see why kind of they weren't getting playing time.
Yeah, and they're going to be mixed in with some guys that have some experience. Max Anderson, 10 home runs last year. Griffin Everett, 8 home runs last year. Bryce Matthews, 7 home runs last year. They got some guys there that are really ready to take that step and be a great ball club. This team feels a lot like Arizona State of this year, where they bring in a ton of this talent, and they're bringing in all this recruiting talent that's all on the JC transfer. They're all on the Big 5 transfers. When we look at that, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. They got left-handed pitcher Emmett Olson on the mound. 286, 3-3 last year. He could be good, but he's going to have to be great for this Nebraska team to win a conference. I don't see it, but I do see them being more competitive, maybe be in the top 4 here. We have them at 5 because, again, when you bring in JCs, it's hard to gel, hard to combine that into a team. Are they going to be a team by opening day? Who knows? Only time's going to tell. We're 43 days away, so we're going to find out here real fast. So moving on to our number 4 team. Jake, I'm going to go back to you here because this is another team that has really – underperformed with a lot of talent in the previous years. Let's look at Michigan right now, number 4. New coaching staff. What does that mean for this ball club?
I'm very, very down on Michigan. I know that all their signs kind of point to being a good team. They returned 29 players from a team that won the Big Ten last year. 5 of their last 9 batters, I think, are also back from as well. But again, they lost their coach. And I always felt like their coach kind of coached them up in their talent, and they always punched above their weight class. So I'm very, very down on Michigan. But again, they can kind of hide in this Big Ten because there's so many bad teams.
I don't know. I love the staff that they brought in. I love Tracy. I love Tyler. I think that they brought in a lot of good coaches into this staff. I think that they're going to be very competitive. Again, like you said, they returned some key players. Jimmy Obertop is good. You know, you're talking about 15 home runs returning. That's a big-time catcher there. Tito Flores, 11 home runs. Ted Burton, 10 home runs. And then they got a guy like Chase Allen on the mound, 4.01 ERA. Could be a lot of stuff. Jacob Dinner ate up a lot of innings last year. And they got freshman Greg Pace Jr. coming in, who's a very highly recruited player. I think that this Michigan club is going to surprise some teams. I don't know if they have the talent to win it this year and win that Big Ten title again this year. But I do like where they're going. I don't think that they're in such a lull year where we talk to them and write them off. So I like where Michigan's at 4 here. Number 3, Rutgers. I feel like this is a low rating for Rutgers, and I don't know if it's because I don't love Iowa and Maryland or if I just think Rutgers is better. Noah, what do you like about this Rutgers team in particular?
I love everything about Rutgers, except for maybe the pitching. But the offense is so fantastic. The offense is quietly almost as good as the Tennessee last year. These guys were tearing the cover off the ball. Ryan Lasko is one of the best players in the country that a lot of people haven't heard of. This guy's going to be a first-round pick. If I had to compare him to anybody, I would say that he's the Big Ten's Vance Honeycutt, and I love Vance Honeycutt. You should too. You should also love Ryan Lasko. Really great player. This team hit 320 as a group last year. I wanted them to make the NCAA tournament so badly. They were a wagon. Maryland, who we'll talk about later, is a wagon. But I do worry about that rotation quite a bit. They can score 80 runs a game, but you got to be able to not give up 81.
Yeah, they might score 10 runs a game, but they might give up 11 because I don't love the pitching staff. Jake, when you look at this team, is it just pitching they're missing?
I would say so, but they almost have the hitting to kind of hide their pitching. They're almost like a challenge team in MLB The Show where you load up on hitters and just ignore pitching. I like Chris Brito. I think he's almost better than Ryan Lasko. He, received a ton of awards at the Cape this year, was named the All-Star, numerous categories, the longest run at the Cape. Their kind of prove-it series is they have an exciting one with UConn in the middle of March, and that's one that I have circled that I'm hopefully trying to get up there and see. But Ryan Lasko, Chris Brito, I think Rutgers is going to be a 2 seed. I know they missed the tournament last year, but that's kind of where I see them. And I don't know who ranked them so low, but I had them winning the Big Ten outright.
It was me. I had them low. And the more I looked at this team, the more I fell in love with it. But I ranked them low because of pitching. I don't love the pitching side of it. I don't think that they can get outs. But when you look more at their offense, like you said, Lasko, Brito, those guys both had 16 home runs last year and hit over 300. And then you've still got guys like Evan Slight, Tony Santamaria. Those are 10 home run guys that are just sitting there on the bench, coming into this ball club now. They're going to be starting. They're going to be middle lineup guys. So it's going to be interesting to see. The best returning pitcher they have is Wyatt Parliament, right-handed guy last year, 330 ERA, 5-1. He was a freshman last year, so having that experience of going through that, maybe that helps him be a stud, be that Friday guy for them. But they're going to need some help, and I don't know if it's going to come on the pitching side. But we're going to find out more about that later when we get more into this Rutgers team. Let's move on to number 2, Iowa, which has kind of just been a staple of this conference for a long time. They're kind of like the football team, though. They're kind of just boring. They kind of show up, they do the thing, they win games, and then they go home. When we look at this Iowa team, Noah, what is there to like about it? Do they have any flash?
Well, there's absolutely nothing to like about the University of Iowa, but their baseball team is definitely their most lovable product because they're just so extremely hateable and dry. But Ty Langenberg is going to be really big on the mound for him this year. Iowa is another one of those teams that have kind of produced under-the-radar pitching gems. These guys just crank them out. It's kind of like you would expect Iowa football to play. We're going to go ahead and hold the other team to 3, and we're going to try and win every game. And then you look at Keaton Anthony, a guy that can just tear the cover off the ball, and he's going to build a bit too this year because when you go to Iowa, you play defense, no matter what sport you play. Even the kids in the library practice defense.
They field ground balls like no other team. They have fundamentals, we'll say. I love Keaton Anthony this year. I think that he's going to be terrific for that Iowa club. The problem is I just don't see a ton around him helping them out. They do have a lot of freshmen coming in. Gable Mitchell, Kellen Strohmeyer, and Reese Moore all coming into this club that are very highly rated freshmen coming in. The biggest freshman that I want to see is going to help them on the pitching side. You already said Ty Langenberg, great on the mound. Freshman Cade Obermuller is coming in, and he was a super high recruit. I want to see if he can take that step and be a leader and be the dude on this club, but we'll see. Freshman, it's tough. It's tough coming into this club, to a Big Ten conference and dominating right away. You've seen it before with other guys. It's really hard to come in and dominate, even if you are a highly recruited and highly touted player. Moving on to our last one here. Obviously, everybody knows who number one is. We have Maryland, number one. Great ball club. They seem the most well put together. They seem like they have everything put together here as a team. You know what, Jake? I'm going to let you start on this Maryland. I'm going to let Noah talk about why they're a wagon after that. So, Jake, let us know about this Maryland club.
I think it all starts with their kind of three-headed dog. They got Jason Savacool as their ace. Had a sub-3 ERA in the Big Ten, which is almost like a sub-1 ERA. They got Matt Shaw, the shortstop, coming back, preseason All-American. And then they got Luke Singer, the leadoff catcher. I love it when a catcher rakes. I love it even more when a catcher bats leadoff. There's a lot to like about this team. Shaw tore it up at the Cape this year, and I think they're going to be the wagon. And it's either going to be them or Rutgers kind of running away with it. And their ceiling is kind of a top 16 seed. I think they need to be hosted. That's their ceiling.
Their goal coming to the season is definitely to host. And like you nailed it, Matt Shaw is a dude. When you look at baseball players, he shows up. He's a dude for that ball club. I really look forward to seeing him. He might hit 30 home runs this year. He's that good, guys. When you look at this team, Noah, what do you like about Maryland?
Well, it's the exact same names we just said. Matt Shaw is fantastic. Matt Shaw is up there with Ryan Lasko as the best player in this conference. It's going to be a great 1-2 race. If you think about last year's Big Ten conference, which admittedly not a lot of people across the country did, it was Maryland, Rutgers the whole way. It was the who's going to pull away at the end. Maryland did, and then Rutgers completely missed the NCAA tournament. That's how fickle this conference is. Maryland has everything that we wanted from them as a wagon last year, and then they hosted a fantastic regional. They filled the place. Maryland fans came out of the woodwork to support this baseball team. It was really great to see. One of the best things about college baseball is when you can get those fans who come out, learn about baseball, and all of a sudden pack their stands and make it a really loud place in a place that's historically somewhere you go in and there might be 20 people there. That's not necessarily a slight to Maryland. It's a slight to our sport, but it's great when a place like Maryland can explode like that because of this great team. Rob Vaughn and Jason Savacool has been one of the best pitchers in the country. I shouldn't say greatest. That's a word reserved for other players. But one of the best pitchers in the country the last few years, and he's finally going to earn that Friday spot. He's been going on Sundays. They call it Savvy Sundays. I'm going to miss those Sundays. But Savvy Fridays are in our future, and I can't wait to see him do it.
Were they the ones that had the temporary stands for the tournament last year because their stadium was so small?
Hey, now hold on. Temporary stands can sometimes be cool, right, Mark?
Yeah, let me tell you, they put them at Goss. It's okay. All right. So there's some cool temporary stands. So let's just pump the brakes on temporary stand hating, okay? Because that does mean they host, unlike some schools around here. Anyway, when we're talking about this team, I do love that they have 5 guys returning that hit over 300 last year. They also have 5 guys returning that hit double-digit home runs. I don't think there's a lot to hate about this Maryland team, and I think that's why we have them at number 1. They check the most boxes when we're looking at Big Ten teams, and I think that's what you really have to come down to is the consistency and the play that they've had. They do have a couple freshmen coming in, a couple freshman pitchers, so it's going to be interesting. Kyle McCoy and Ilkum Stowe. Those guys are both highly recruited guys, too, and they're coming in. So I'm going to be really interested to see if this Maryland club can be a top 16 seed, like Jake's saying. It'd be great to see if they do, but I hope that they can. I hope that they can host, and hopefully they have permanent seating this year. All right. Where we look at this conference, player of the year, we've mentioned a few guys already. Noah, I'm going to let you start because I think I know where you're going to go with this. Who is your player of the year in the conference?
Mark, I'm going to say it. I would be positively shocked if you knew where I was going with this one. This one is not my usual pick where I pick, not the favorite, but this number 2 guy. That's my go-to usually. Yeah. I'm going down the list this time. I'm going with a team that I would never usually go out and stick my neck out for. Max Anderson with Nebraska is going to be due for that breakout third year. We've seen him be really, really consistent. Even in a year where he hit under 300 last year, he still cranked 10 out of the ballpark. Going to be a leader for this team. Nebraska had this trouble last year where they had all these expectations on them that they really weren't ready for. This year, who's talking about Nebraska like they were last year? Nobody is. Nebraska was going to host a regional a year ago, if you remember, and then they flat out missed the Big Ten tournament. Max Anderson is somebody that a lot of people are going to learn across the Big Ten at least, and maybe he can sneak out and win that award. I think Nebraska gets back into the NCAA tournament this year via a weak schedule. Pad those stats. Max Anderson is somebody to keep an eye out for. Is he as good as Lasko? No, but he might be.
That's an interesting pick. I really actually like it. He was on my short list here. The 299, 10 home runs. He's a guy that's going to have to be great if we want this Nebraska team to be as good as they are. We welcome in Jace Stanton also. Jace, you are muted, by the way. We'll go through this. But yeah, when we look at that, Max Anderson could be the player of the year, and that's where we're going to go with this one. Jake, I'm going to let you go next here for player of the year, and then I'll go to you, Jace, for player of the year next. Jake, who do you think is going to be the player of the year?
Well, I for sure thought Noah was going to go Ryan Lasko, so I had this big speech drawn out for Mitch Jebb, but I guess I can just tweak it and go with Ryan Lasko. He's the best player, and I think Rutgers is going to run away with the Big Ten outside of them in Maryland. 16 home runs, 12 in Big Ten games, which, by the way, the record for Big Ten home runs in a season is only 14, just for reference. Hit almost 350. Banged the ball around the whole yard, hit it to all sides of the field. Ryan Lasko, I think, is going to be the best player in the Big Ten. And like Noah said, he's going to be the best player that no one talks about.
He might be the highest recruited or the highest drafted player that nobody talks about this entire year, which is going to be sad for that conference and sad for him. But I think Ryan Lasko, big league players and or big league scouts know this guy. They know he's going to be talented. They're looking forward to him. So I really like that pick. He was the number 1 on my player of the year candidates list. Jace, when we talk about player of the year here in the Big Ten, who do you like for player of the year in the Big Ten?
Well, first off, happy to be here, guys. Finally.
Welcome in.
I have to go with my player of the year as Keaton Anthony, simply because he was a great two-way player in high school, and injuries limited him last year. I think he only pitched like 4 or 5 innings in some midweek games, but he's looking to take a full role on the mound this year. It remains to be seen whether it's going to be out of relief or if he'll be starting any games, but he's gonna hit a bunch of bombs, and he's hopefully gonna get on the mound and show what he can do there. So I think Keaton Anthony's the guy for me.
Keaton Anthony is going to have to be great in this Iowa club to save them. I love Keaton Anthony. Don't get me wrong. He could be a guy that goes out and hits 20 home runs this year. He could be a top producer on that team. I'm going to go with another guy from Maryland here. I really believe that Nick LaRusso could win this award if he is excellent. But I'm not going to go there. I'm going Matt Shaw is going to win this award. It's going to be a runaway Matt Shaw. He might hit 30 home runs. I'm not kidding about that. I think he has the pop to hit 30. He hit 290 last year. I'd like to see that average come up a little bit more, get into some better hitting counts. People pitched really hard around him last year. I think he's going to hit 25 at least. I hope he hits the 30. So my pick for player of the year is going to be Matt Shaw there at Maryland. All right. Now we move on to our pitcher of the year. This one's different in this conference. It's a little tougher. We're projecting a lot more of how we think that they're going to do in conference. A lot of these guys struggled out of conference last year. Jake, I'm going to start with you. Who's your pitcher of the year for this conference?
I think it's got to be Friday Savvy, Jason Savicule out of Maryland. I think he's going to, sorry, Noah. I see you over there shrugging, but I think this one's going to be a little bit easier of an award to kind of pick for Maryland because I think they're going to shut down some of these lesser teams, and he's going to have that really low ERA like he did last year. And it's going to be we talked about it all night. It's going to be Rutgers and Maryland, and I went with the Rutgers guy, so I had to go with the Maryland pitcher.
No, yeah, that's a great pick. Jason Savicule, top of the list for most people there. I'd say he's at least in everybody's top 3 when you're talking about this award this year, and everybody wants to see him make that step from the Sunday guy to the Friday guy. It's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. Jace, when you look at this conference, not a ton of pitching talent out there, but who's going to win this award for pitcher of the year?
I'm actually going to go with a different Maryland pitcher who I think is going to step up this year, Nick Dean. He was great in 2021 in limited action. Last year, he had some flashes here and there. I think that they're really going to need him to step up to stay successful. So I think he's going to outperform his teammate.
Yeah, Nick Dean was great last year. He just was not as great as Jason Savicule. 6-2, 4.57, had a couple bad starts, but really the more consistency was coming from those good starts. When he pitched well, when he got through the lineup the first couple times, he was pretty unstoppable for the rest of the game. If he struggled there early in games, well, that's where he got beat up. So it'll be interesting to see if he can fix those issues with control that he had last year early in those games. Noah, who's your pitcher of the year?
Well, first, I just got to give a credit to Jace here for knowing that the absolute worst thing on the planet is agreeing with Jake. So it was great to just pick a different Maryland pitcher and get out ahead of that. 5 minutes on the show, he's already got it figured out. But I'm going with Jason Savicule because I thought of it before Jake did. So give me the Savvy Fridays, which is a total just typical Jake thing to just take that right out of my mouth. And, he's just going to dominate. He's going to be one of those frontline starters for Maryland that we see. We saw Ryan Ramsey last year. Ramsey threw a no-hitter. I'm going to lock it in. Jason Savicule throws a no-hitter at some point this year.
That'd be very cool to see him get in there and throw a no-hitter. I'm not going to lie. I think that he is probably the front runner for this award. But I'm going to go with Iowa's Ty Langenberg. I think that if Iowa wants to win this conference, that they're going to have to lean on him to be good. He was 7-2 last year, 3.71 ERA. I think that he has the stuff to be able to do it in this league and be competitive. I just think that if you're going to look outside of, Jason Savakul, why not go to Iowa? Why not go to Rutgers? Rutgers doesn't really have a stud on the mound this year. So I'm going to go Ty Langenberg on this one. I think that he has a chance of winning this award. So Freshman of the Year. Jason, I'm going to let you start on Freshman of the Year here. I know this is your first show, and you're going to jump right into awards. So Freshman of the Year in the Big Ten, who you got?
Well, I think the Big Ten is always pretty tough to pick the freshmen because, there's going to be some guys on the bottom feeder teams that are going to rack up some stats. But I'm going to make a boring pick here, and I think I'll go with Gregory Pace because he's going to come into Michigan, and he's going to have a huge impact right away.
Yeah, Pace steps on the field right now and plays outfield. I don't know if he's going to be the starting center fielder on that club necessarily, but he's definitely got a chance to be the starting center fielder there. He's going to make a difference and make this team better immediately. He's a big impact guy, so I do like that. If Michigan can get to the top seed, if they can be the number one team, he's going to have a big part of that. So I like that pick. Noah?
Yeah, I got Kyle McCoy, Maryland. He's going to fill out that rotation. We're talking about Maryland. If we keep giving them all the awards, these guys are going to be the number one overall seed. if we're all right, Maryland is going to give us some kind of award at the end of the year. But when you talk about a place like Maryland that needs that kind of third starter, somebody to step up, Kyle McCoy, like you said earlier, highly touted freshman coming in. He's got as good a chance of anybody when you put him in that kind of spot where you're built for success like Maryland.
Yeah, he's going to be a chance at being that Sunday starter because they're going to go Savakul and then Dean. If he gets that Sunday starter, it's a good spot for a freshman to come in. We've seen freshmen in other conferences succeed as the Sunday starter because you get to face, another Sunday starter. It gives you that chance to really get your toes wet into this conference. So I like to see that. I like that pick there in Kyle McCoy. Jake, who you got? Freshman of the Year?
Well, Noah kind of stole mine, so I guess I'll go with my obscure one that no one stole. I'm going to go with Ty Torty out of Penn State. He can play all over the field. He's a switch-hitting batter, so he's going to get opportunities to bat, but just with matchups all alone. And I think Penn State, they're going to struggle early on, and Torty's going to get into the lineup. And then once they roll into Big Ten play, I think he's going to be someone that kind of steps up. And we've talked throughout all these other shows that it's usually who gets the most opportunities, and I see Torty getting the most opportunities at Penn State.
Yeah, I say it every time I pick these awards. I say that Freshman of the Year or Newcomer of the Year is usually an opportunity award. I really like what I see out of Devin Taylor at Indiana. He's going to step right in and be a stud for that ball club. And if Indiana is going to be the team that they think they can be, which is a top 4 in this conference, it's going to be a lot on that kid's shoulders. So freshman, he's coming in, highly recruited, number one guy in the Big Ten probably that they're picking on. Devin Taylor, I really like him at Indiana there this year.
Mark, I would love to just interject real quick.
Yeah.
About 28 minutes ago here, Kendall Rogers broke some news. Of course, Kendall, we're all best buds with D1 baseball because we're not rivals. But they tweeted that from now on, this is breaking from the NCAA. Home teams will be home teams in the NCAA tournament. That is just – I didn't even know that was up for consideration.
Oh.
But if you host, you will play at home.
So you're the home team every single game that you play in? That's how it always should have been. I hated being on the road on those, showing up and having to be the visitor when you're the host team and you're like, being the visitor against Vanderbilt when you're sitting at Corvallis. It's like, what's the point of this? Now, all right, that's cool. I'm glad that they passed that.
If you've read the College Baseball Central mentions the past week or so, people have been talking about it. So It was just crazy that it actually happened. The NCAA has given us a gift.
We brought it up, but we've been complaining about it for as much as we could last year during the tournament. We said it was just a terrible thing for those teams to have to do that. I'm glad that they did it. It's finally they're making decisions the right way. Now, if we can just make sure we get that 4th assistant paid and make sure we can get 25 scholarships, we'll be right on the right pace here to be in college baseball great again. All right. Now we're going to move on to our dark horse, which means I really don't think that we can pick Maryland, Iowa, Rutgers, or Michigan, guys. I think we should stay away from those, Jake. And I'm going to have you guys pick somebody else that's not in those. I'm going to let you go first, Jake, just so you feel like you have the best shot at this one.
I didn't even think you could even put Nebraska in there, too, just because I feel like I wouldn't be surprised to see them win it. I'm going to go way out of left field and go Illinois Fighting Illini. They really got hot in Big Ten play last year, and I could see them kind of doing it again. Their schedule sets up nicely for them. So I'm going to go the Illinois Fighting Illini as my dark horse.
I love that pick. I had Riley Gowans down there as one of my chance, pitcher of the year kind of guys. And if he is that good this year for Illinois, he gives them a chance. And of course, I got Cam McDonald, 363, 7 home runs, 59 RBIs coming back. Dolgate and Comia coming back. I mean, they got dudes. So this team could be a dark horse. You are 100% correct there, Jake. Jace, who's your dark horse to win this conference?
100% Indiana. I love what they have coming in. I love what they have returning. They have a lot of grit. They have a lot of passion when they're on the field, and they can definitely go on a big run. I believe in them. I do.
Jace showing up for his first show and doing what everybody else has done all season and taking my picks early. I like it.
It's
I
tradition.
had that Indiana written down, circled, highlighted, everything you want to say. I was speaking earlier about how I love this Indiana club. I love that, Jace. It's a great pick. They do have a ton of talent. They do have some freshmen coming in. They have pitching. They have like a little combination of everything. They're just going to fly under the radar early in this season. But I like that pick for the dark horse of the year. Noah, who you got for dark horse? I know you got something interesting for me.
Michigan
I
State.
got something really, really interesting for you. This is a masterclass put on by Jake tonight. You cannot beat Jake McKeever when it comes to making a pick, and then he's going to blabber out something that completely just makes you sound like an idiot when you repeat it. I had 3 teams mentioned. Number 1 was Indiana. So obviously, Mark and Jace, you guys can have that pick. You earned it. But I was also going to say Illinois, which was, of course, Jake's pick. And then I thought, you know what? Let me pick a little bit of a safer team, Nebraska. Jake knew in his opening statement, well, you can't pick Nebraska, which, of course, he said after I picked Max Anderson to win Big Ten Player of the Year. Masterclass by Jake here.
You can have Minnesota. No one's picked Minnesota.
Jake,
Listen. I know Dan Faulkner's listening right now. Minnesota, this is not softball. Minnesota is not a wagon in baseball. They are not that team here we're looking at. So who'd you pick there, Noah?
It doesn't matter because Jake will take it. But give me Illinois. I really like.
You don't want to
Illinois.
Purdue it? Come on,
No,
Purdue it
I
up.
do not.
We're gonna split because I'm gonna go Indiana. I'm gonna stick with Jace there. I think Indiana and Illinois are the 2 best picks for this award. I would have been fine with Nebraska there, I think, but if Max Anderson does win Player of the Year, then it means that Nebraska had a good season. So I see where you were heading with that one there, Noah. I really like that idea.
Jake's not too.
Series here. I'm gonna make Jake go last. So Noah, you're gonna go first here. What series are you most looking forward to in this conference?
Well, see, now this is just low-hanging fruit, and you're setting me up to act like I stole something. But Maryland versus Rutgers, April 7th through the 9th. It's going to be the series that decides who wins this conference, in my opinion. Iowa's, of course, going to have their dirty little toes in the mix, as they always do in every sport. But Maryland, Rutgers, can't wait to see it. I was hoping to see it in Omaha last year, and it didn't work out. They're gonna ball out this year. College Game Day needs to get baseball together and go to this series for the Big Ten. It's going to be great.
Well, that's what we do, right? We're trying to get
right.
them to fly us out. We're the weekend rotation is College Game Day of baseball. Fans love seeing us. They feed us all over the place. Jake, Noah, and I all went to Omaha last year and got fed and taken care of real well by all the faithful out there, especially the Arkansas folks. So thanks, guys. Jace, when you look at this teams, what is your favorite series in this conference this year?
I mean, I'm going to have to agree just because there's just going to be way too much on the line when they play. And it's going to be a lot of fun watching the star power against each other.
Yeah, I mean, they're the 2 best probably in this conference here. I love those picks. I wonder if there's not going to be some more interesting and drama behind the scenes this year, and those guys aren't the teams that we're looking at, but who knows? Jake, who do you have here for your series of the year?
It's got to be – this isn't a Big Ten series, but it has Big Ten teams. The Cambria Classic. We're going 300 down the right field line. We're going 310 down the left field line. We're going to have a line in the middle of the wall. It's going to be crazy. So you could, hit. You don't have to hit it over the wall for it to be a home run. Cambria Classic is the series of the Big Ten.
It is very interesting this year. They're going to host that in Minnesota. It's going to be very good. It's going to be good baseball. It's just weird that they're doing it up north there. It seems like it's going to be super cold, but we'll see what happens there.
That's the only Big Ten home game before conference play starts.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. It's because it's miserable and cold and nobody wants to be up there. I'm going to go I had a couple on here. I had Michigan at Rutgers in April 14th through the 16th, but I think that interests me is because I have Indiana picked. I'm going to go Iowa at Indiana, April 7th through the 9th. I think this is a show me games for both of these clubs to see how they are. I don't know. I don't love Iowa. I think that them as a road team is really bad, and I think this is a time when Indiana could show that they could compete in this conference, be a top 4, and get into the tournament here. But I think that's my favorite one of the year is looking at that one, Iowa at Indiana, just because of the parity in this conference. All right, we're going to go into some individual questions. As you guys know, I write these ahead of time. I send them to them so each person knows their individual questions. We're going to go through this one. Jake, is Michigan going to be better in the regular season this year, worse, or the same? And can they do better in the Big Ten?
I think they're going to be worse this season. I think that they had some bad karma with how they ran their mouth after that Louisville series because, I am now a Louisville Cardinal fan. I don't think Tracy Smith is going to have the extra thing. I mean, he couldn't win with Spencer Torkelson. And there's a big drop down in talent between Arizona State and Michigan. And I think he's going to really struggle to kind of get these guys to gel on the road early on. And I kind of see them even as like a 6 or 7 here. I'll make sure I get this right. Yeah, I had them at 6. I had them behind Penn State and Nebraska. So I'm very, very low on Michigan.
Yeah, I just think Tracy Smith also has won a Coach of the Year award, which is hard enough to win that award. So I'm not going to say he's not. I think
he's not a bad coach. I don't want to say that. I just think maybe he's lost that edge.
I think it's tough to go up there. I'm hoping that maybe this cold weather and, spending some time up north has changed him back into the coach that he was, a little fiery guy, could really get after his team, could really get those guys to play, passionate about college baseball. So I really like what he's doing up there. We'll see what happens.
Is that Tracy Smith coming to get me now?
Yeah, it is.
Tracy Smith. Jace, I'm going to ask you a question now since you're new to this. Does Iowa have what it takes to win the Big Ten this year?
Absolutely, I think they do. I think one of the biggest keys to that is not drawing Maryland on their schedule this year. Yeah, I think they do. They have the pitching every year. They beat you with all the little things. They're going to do all the small things right. So, I mean, they're going to be a tough team to knock down, but, I don't know. I think they can get it done, but it's going to definitely be a tough road for them.
Their schedule is in their favor, but they do, like I said, they have that road series at Indiana early in the conference. I do think that their series is, though, wind up for being the best chance of having the best chance of winning a conference title. I don't know, though, if this team has enough. I'm going to disagree with you a little, Jace. I just don't know if they have enough pitching, but they seem to always come up with new pitchers every year. They seem to get guys to get out. So I'm interested to see what this Iowa club does. I'm going to be hesitant to say they can win a title right now. Noah, when we look at all the things we combine here, where are we at with Rutgers? Are they going to be an elite program? Do they take the next step forward? Where are we at with this Rutgers team?
Well, when you look at how they played last year, where they just absolutely tore the cover off the ball, that puts themselves in elite company. Like I said, they were just a little statistically short of Tennessee last year, and everybody knows how well Tennessee played because they're in the SEC. If Rutgers was in the SEC, it's hard to say which games they win, but if you have those equal stats, we're talking about one of the best teams in the country. Obviously, it's a little tougher to play in the SEC than it is the Big Ten, but Rutgers in the Big Ten conversation is absolutely one of those elite teams. You need that stability, and there's a little bit of a cause for concern with the rotation turnover that they have this year. But here's the thing, Mark: they had it last year, so they've already done that once, where they had to replace the entire rotation, bring new guys in, and they found that. Obviously, it didn't work out for the NCAA tournament, but they were a great Big Ten team. And sometimes you can be a great team in the Big Ten without making the NCAA tournament. That's just the way these lower tier conferences are, especially in football. But when we're just talking about the Big Ten, baseball is just not their forte.
Yeah, this Rutgers team, there's a lot to like, and I do think you're right with the pitching staff. Can Wyatt Parliament can make that change from being a freshman who went 5-1 last year and be the dude now on a Friday or Saturday? That's yet to be seen. We're going to have to wait until. But this team can hit. They can hit. They can compete with anybody else on the field in this conference. So looking forward, I do like where they're at. Speaking of other teams that compete with everybody, Jake, Maryland had almost a dream season last year. Can they recapture that magic? Can they win a title?
When you mean title, do you mean Big Ten title or national?
I mean titles. Can they win? And can they win at Omaha? Can they be the team?
I don't think so, just because I don't think they're going to play a lot of elite talent in the Big Ten that kind of gets you ready. And I think they definitely, I think it's almost 50-50 between them and Rutgers. And, like I said, national seed. There's a lot to like with Shaw and Schindler, but as far as nationals go, I don't really see it, if I'm being honest with you.
This Maryland team, though, they return a lot of offense, and they hit well last year, and they got into the tournament. They played well late. I'd like to see them take that next step forward. I think winning the Big Ten title, like you said, that is the first title that we need to talk about with this club. But I think their goal here has to be Omaha or bust. So
I like the South, and I think they technically are a Southern team because they're south of the Mason-Dixon line. So I guess I kind of have to cheer for them because I cheer for all Southern teams.
When you look at this Maryland team, it feels like one of the Carolinas. It really does. It feels like it mixes in well on that East Coast Southern schools.
I was thinking that when I was researching them, I wonder where we would put them in the ACC because I almost forgot that they used to be in the ACC. But it'd be really interesting to see kind of where they fall in that ACC range.
Well, we'll be doing that when we do our top 25s, and we're going to do that here in a couple of weeks and do that preview for everybody. So that will really break down whether we're going to be how high we would have them in the ACC. Because I'm betting we're going to have a few ACC teams in that top 25.
Just a few.
Just a few. When we look at this next one, Jace, Illinois is an interesting team. Are they a contender or are they a pretender? We have them at number 7. Where are they?
Personally, I think for me, on a year-to-year basis, they're just too streaky of a team. I think when their pitching is good, their hitting never shows up. And then when the bats are alive, the pitching just feels off. So they've got the pieces there to put together a run. But for me, I'm going to have to go with no.
Yeah, I just don't know if they have enough to do it all this year. I do love Riley Gowns. I think that he does a lot for this team on that pitching side. I just don't know if they have enough. Noah, speaking of the team, I don't know if they have enough, but I love, and I've said this, as they are my dark horse in Indiana. When you look at this Indiana team, do they have enough to compete? Are they there? Again, contender or pretender?
Yeah, Indiana was a team that I saw play in the Big Ten tournament, and they took down Maryland. So they have a little bit of that action in them that they can rise up and beat the top dogs in this conference. But then it was in the Big Ten tournament. You know how wacky that got. 30 minutes later, they had to play Rutgers, and Rutgers blew them out of the building. It was quite embarrassing for that Indiana team. That ended their season. That might give them a little bit of a sour taste coming back. But I just don't know if this Indiana team has the ability to do that across a whole season. They might be a team that we see catch fire in Omaha in that Big Ten tournament. But until then, I question if they have that it factor. I like them as a little bit of a sleeper in this conference, but that's more of a testament to the parity that the Big Ten can offer as opposed to the strength of Indiana.
Yeah, it feels like anything can happen from 4 to 9. I don't really see Rutgers and Maryland getting knocked out of the top 3 themselves, but anything can happen from 4 to 9 in there. So I'm really interested to see that. Side note, any wagons that we see here, Noah? I'm just going to throw it out there. Do we see a wagon here?
Maryland was a team that after the way that they performed in that regional, they were pretty good on the field, but they were better in the stands, and that makes Maryland a wagon for me. And then when I saw Rutgers play in person, they absolutely blew the doors off of that Indiana team that beat Maryland, and I was impressed. So for me, Maryland and Rutgers are strong wagon candidates, and Maryland might be a preseason wagon.
Okay. All right. I like that we have one in the Big Ten. I didn't know if we were going to have one. I am almost anti-wagon. Some people say I hate the Oregon Trail, even though I live right next to the end of it here. People think that I'm anti-wagon. No, I'm just a realist, guys. Come on. Jace, when we look at everything, we're going to ask you this question first. How many Big Ten teams make it to Omaha? Hot seat right away. First show, you're getting hot seated.
I would love to have a Big Ten team in. I think the world needs a Big Ten team in, but they will probably all get poached by bad reviews in the regionals again. So
Jason's going hard 0, wishing for more. If it was that 0.5 over under, he's going under. Jake, how many teams from the Big Ten make it to Omaha this year?
Well, as a resident smartass, I believe 8 teams make it to Omaha because they played the Big Ten tournament in Omaha. But realistically, 0. If you gave me over under 1.5, I take the under. If you gave me over under 0.5, I take the under. I don't see any of these teams. I would see maybe one super regional team, and that's either Maryland or Rutgers, and I think they would have to get very, very good regional draws.
It's tough. It's tough. Noah, how many Omaha teams are out of this conference?
Yeah, I'm going to yell at him. I got it. I was going to say 8 because it's going to be the Big Ten tournament, and it was going to be hilarious. Everybody was going to love it. And then, of course, the masterclass by Jake continues. We got Big Ten Jake over here. This is Big Jake Super Bowl. But realistically, I'm going to take the over. I don't have them in my projection right now, but I think Maryland has every piece that you want for an Omaha team. You kind of have to give them that good regional draw, and you might argue that they had one last year and still couldn't capitalize on it. But Maryland has those pieces. Now they've got the ultimate cliche in sports of the chip on their shoulder after that devastating way they ended last year. You remember there was a blown call that a lot of Maryland fans think cost them their season right at the end, even though they lost by multiple runs. It's going to be a big season for this team. They've got all the pieces there. If there's a year for the Big Ten to have a team where they kind of not even just tear through the NCAA tournament, it's this Maryland team.
I agree. I would love to see Maryland in Omaha this year live. I think that being there and seeing this Maryland team would be exciting. I think Matt Shaw is an all-time player in this conference, and I think that having him at Omaha to cap off this season would just be terrific. I'm going to go one. I'm going to go out there and say that one conference team I think Maryland or Rutgers makes it this year, depending on how hot they get late. I don't think anybody else in this conference has a chance of getting there, but I do love those two schools. So let's go one team in Omaha. I think that is going to be real close. All right. Last words here. Jake, what do you have to say about Big Ten? This has been a big day for you.
I was just say this has been my Super Bowl. Glad to be here for it. Anytime Michigan State's going to get on TV, I think I'm going to watch them because Mitch Jebb's going to be the best player that you see in this conference. And
that you don't see.
Yeah, the best player you don't see. And I think the biggest surprise to me is that he didn't join the transfer portal and try and go somewhere else. I guess he just loves those Michigan State academics. I hear they have a great sociology department.
Good for him. I really thought that he would be a guy that would transfer also with how talented he is. He could have gone and started pretty much anywhere else in the country. But maybe he just wanted to stay there. Maybe he's got whatever ties. So good for him. I'm glad he chose that life. Jace, any final words here on the Big Ten?
I also will be watching Michigan State every time they're on TV, but only because they have the worst baseball field in all of baseball.
That's not true, by the way. You should see Iona's baseball field.
It's pretty hard to beat their Michigan State center field, but I mean they could beat one of the top teams. They could sweep a top team playing on that dumb field. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a fun year for the Big Ten. I think the pitching is going to be down, the offense will be up. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be competitive. Like I said, there's a lot of parity there between 4 and 9. I think our bottom 4 teams are pretty much locked in. I think our top 3 teams are pretty much locked in, but there's a lot of parity elsewhere there. Noah, any last words here for the Big Ten?
I'm excited. I don't like the Big Ten in football or basketball, but I really like them in baseball, and I'm going to pump them up. Last year, we did so much for the Pac-12. They got a team in Omaha. They should have had 2. We'll talk about why they didn't get 2 maybe later on, Mark. But great year for the Big Ten incoming. I hope people watch. Maryland Rutgers is going to be one of those can't-miss series. We know that we'll pick them that week as long as they are as good as we believe them to be. And even if they aren't, that means that there's going to be another great Big Ten series, at least one this year. And I, too, will watch Michigan State every time they're on TV because they won't be on TV at all this year.
It's easy for me to watch them out here on the West Coast. They won't be on for me, so it'll be a non-factor for me. But I do love Mitch Jebb. I do think that he is terrific talent there. You look across this conference, and for not having to see a lot of baseball last year from them, there's a lot of talent in this conference. So I do encourage people to catch a game when they can, see some of these superstars all over the place. There are guys that are going to be drafted. There's going to be guys that you're not going to know where they're from when they get to the bigs because you never watched them in college. There are some dudes in this club. There's some dudes all over the place here. Please watch them. We thank you for watching. Again, like and follow us at College Baseball Central, the Weekend Rotation. We got all of our Twitter handles there. For Jake McKeever, Jace Staten, Noah Darling, and myself, Mark Garland, thanks for joining us again. I believe our next show will probably be the top 25. We're going to unveil our first top 25 of the year, our preseason top 25, and we're going to break it down same way we do this. So thanks for joining us every time, guys, and we appreciate you guys.